All right, let's talk about that feeling. You know the one, that intense, sometimes totally overwhelming belief that everyone is watching you, judging every little thing you do. Today, we're going to get right into why that happens. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You leave a party or a meeting or heck, even just the checkout line at the grocery store, and suddenly your brain just hits rewind. You start replaying that tiny interaction. Did I sound stupid? Was that joke awkward? Oh man, did they see me trip a little? This kind of mental replay is super common, and it's actually rooted in a specific habit our brains have. Psychologists actually have a name for this. It's called mind reading. It's this cognitive distortion where we convince ourselves that we know exactly what other people are thinking. And here's the kicker. We almost always assume it's something negative. We don't just guess, we feel like we know. But this is really just the tip of the iceberg. There are two other really powerful psychological effects that are truly running the show here. So what's really going on in our heads? Well, the first big piece of the puzzle is this powerful effect that makes us feel like we are constantly on stage, with the spotlight following our every move. This is called the spotlight effect. It's that gut feeling that a giant social spotlight is just locked onto you, highlighting every mistake, every stumble, every weird thing you say for the entire world to see. It happens because, we're the main character in our own movie, and we sometimes forget that everyone else is the main character in there. I mean, think about it. Your entire world revolves around you, your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. But for literally everyone else, you're just a background character in their story, just like they are in yours. They are way too busy worrying about their own spotlight to be paying that much attention to yours. And this has been proven in some really cool ways. In one classic experiment, researchers put a pretty noticeable fake scar on people's faces. As you can imagine, they felt super self-conscious. After they had a chat with a stranger, they reported that, yeah, the person definitely treated them differently because of the scar. But here's the twist. Right before they walked into the room, the researchers had secretly wiped the scar off. The entire feeling of being judged, of being watched, it was all generated from inside their own head. The audience they were so worried about just wasn't there. Okay, so that's how we completely overestimate how much people notice our appearance. But what about our feelings? Everything that's going on inside. Well, this brings us to the spotlight effect's very close cousin, the illusion of transparency. This is the belief that our internal state, our anxiety, our excitement, our self-doubt, is just leaking out of us. We feel like it's written all over our faces, like our minds are basically made of glass and everyone can see right through them. Let's make this super real. Picture Priya. She's about to give a huge presentation. Inside, she is a complete mess. Her heart is hammering, she's sure her hands are shaking, and she's convinced everyone can hear her voice quivering. But to her team, she looks totally poised, confident, and prepared. That intense storm of anxiety she's feeling is almost completely invisible to everyone else. So why? Why are our brains so bad at figuring this out? Why do we feel so incredibly exposed when, in reality, we're basically unreadable? It really comes down to something called an egocentric bias or egocentric anchoring. Our own personal experience is our reality, right? It's the anchor for how we see everything. We are so intensely, overwhelmingly aware of our own nervousness or embarrassment that it's just really hard for us to imagine that it isn't the most obvious thing in the room to everybody else. Now, for some people, these effects aren't just little mental quirks. They can get amplified into something much, much more intense, which brings us to our next big idea. And this is where we have to talk about social anxiety. Now, this isn't just about being a little shy or introverted. It's a really powerful, intense fear of being judged, of being scrutinized, and ultimately being found wanting in the eyes of other people. It basically takes the spotlight effect and the illusion of transparency and just cranks the volume all the way up to 11. And right at the very heart of this anxiety, the thing that's fueling the entire system, is a very specific and well-defined cognitive bias. It's called the fear of negative evaluation, or FNE for short. This is the engine. This is the constant nagging worry that you're going to be criticized or rejected. It's the thing that makes that imagined audience feel not just like they're watching, but like they're hostile. And get this isn't just a feeling. This bias actually changes how people literally perceive the world around them. It's not just in their heads, it changes what they see. So there was this fascinating study that looked at this directly. Researchers showed people a grid of 16 faces, just a mix of happy expressions and angry expressions. All the person had to do was make a really simple call. Were there more happy faces or more angry faces in the grid?
And here's what they found. It's pretty incredible. These charts show that as a person's social anxiety score goes up, that's moving from left to right on the bottom axis, their perception actually shifts. People with higher anxiety were literally seeing the crowd as more negative.
So let's just break that down for a second. People with low social anxiety actually showed a positive bias. They kind of defaulted to seeing the crowd as more positive than it was. But the people with high social anxiety, they had no positive bias at all. And what's more, their brains were extra sensitive to the angry faces. So their mind wasn't just imagining a critical audience, it was perceptually creating one by giving way more weight to any little sign of negativity.
Okay, so our brains can trick us into feeling judged by an audience that either doesn't exist or is way more neutral than we think. Now, that might sound a little discouraging, but the solution? Well, the solution is surprisingly simple, and it's incredibly powerful. So how do we actually do it? How do we step out of that imaginary spotlight and quiet down the fear of that imagined crowd? Another really clever study gives us the answer. So, researchers had people give speeches, and, no surprise, just like our friend Priya, the speakers thought their anxiety was painfully obvious to everyone. But then they ran the experiment again. This time, they told one group of speakers all about the illusion of transparency before they went on stage. And the result? It was huge. That group felt less nervous, they gave speeches that were rated as objectively better, and the audience saw them as more confident and composed. And that's the crucial point here. The takeaway is so simple. Awareness is the cure. Just knowing that your anxiety is less visible than you think it is helps to break that whole feedback loop. The truth, the psychological reality that people really aren't scrutinizing you, can literally set you free from that feeling. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. If your own internal world, your own struggles, are pretty much invisible to other people, that also means their struggles are probably invisible to you. That person you think is judging you, they might just be stuck in their own spotlight, worrying about what you think of them. What would change if we all started acting with that knowledge?